Uh, Just going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. And we do have a quorum. Yes, okay. If you'll stand with us to do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Rich, would you lead us?
Yes. To the American flag, I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
to the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. If you'll remain standing, Pastor Evan Taylor is the senior pastor at Richland Hills Christian Church, and he will be leading our convocation.
Let us pray. God our Father, I thank you for the men and the women serving on this board. And I thank you for the members of the community who seek to make their voices heard, that these faithful decision makers may be equipped to make the most well-informed decisions, leading to the greatest flourishing of the people of Tarrant County. Many citizens within this county are struggling financially, and so we take this time to plead for your blessing upon every citizen, every business, every community organization and institution within this county. And Father, we thank you for government in all its forms, as all governing authorities have been instituted by you for our good. You describe those who serve in these capacities as your servants, commissioned by you and thus answerable to you. So lead them accordingly. Illumine their minds to see things clearly, to know what it means to keep justice and do righteousness. Unite their hearts to fear your name. Grant them wisdom and discernment, boldness and confidence, and joy in serving you in these roles. May every interaction today be civil, every matter be debated with respect. On this Veterans Day weekend, we thank you for every man and woman who has served this nation in the armed forces. May they know your good pleasure in their pursuit of liberty and justice for all. And may the sacrifices they have made for our benefit continue to bear fruit today. And Lord, protect and provide for all who are making similar sacrifices around the world. In and for the name of Jesus Christ, your Son, our Savior, the soon-coming King, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Waddell?
In observance of Veterans Day, would all who are currently serving active or reserve or who have served in the armed services or are a widow, widower, or spouse, any member of any branch of the armed services, please stand so that we are able to recognize your service.
Thank you all for your service. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Waddell. Okay, we can go ahead and get started. The first thing is we're going to start with our speakers. And just go in order here. Tracy Stanley.
I've been looking for this for a long time. I have to say that today is one of the best days I've had. I got my mail yesterday, and in it was a turkey and a ham and a happy Christmas, because in it was Wendy Burgess's tax bill. And it normally is $2,200, and it's $634.44. Now, I don't know how you did it, but it was a darn good thing. You made 250,000 people happy, because that's about the number of homesteads that we have. Good job and a good risk, and well done.
Thank you, sir.
And not a response to a speaker. However, everyone did their part. It was not me. It was all of the entities, all of the governments, and everyone that put their hand into it that made that happen. So thank you, sir.
Wayne Wilshire.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm here today to speak a couple items that's on your agenda, particularly item 6A2, which talks about the retirement funds. I am a retiree of the appraisal district, and so I've done a little checking. If you compare the appraisal district's retirement with Social Security puts in 7.5%, and they match at 7.5%. TAD puts in 7, they match at 7%. In 2021 to 2023, I think we got a 2% raise, and according to my calculations, my take-home pay was $14.77 increase in 3 years. When you go to the TAD website, or go to the county website, when you go to the IRS website, in 2022, they gave 8.7% increase, which was a great increase. And the proposed for 2024, 3.2. You add those two together, that's 11.9% increase Social Security gives. So TAD's retirement is not keeping up with the system. I've done a little checking, and I think that if you go back and take the 2% out that we've got in 2021, 22, and add it up, we should be getting about a 5% increase minimum. That's half of what IRS is doing. As far as the other item I want to talk to you about is the insurance for retirees. According to the policy book that I was given when I went to work, and which I still have a copy of, I want to read what the page says. It makes good sense to me, but it doesn't make sense to what I understand y'all looking at. Upon termination at the age of 65, which I retired at the age of 66, so I do qualify for that, TAD will continue the group medical insurance coverage at TAD's expense. Dental and life insurance will not be included. Employee will pay for coverage if his wife or family wants to be included. And so I think you need to upgrade your insurance a little bit, because there are things out there that are better. What happened a few years ago, there was an employee that did not live in Texas, and they decided to give us money instead of paying the insurance. Some of us paid on the county insurance, which because very few are on it. The quality of the insurance is not acceptable, and I don't believe you ought to be giving cash away. You ought to be buying insurance for our retirees. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Sharon Bass.
All right. I was employed by TAD for 37 years. As you enter the building, for every meeting, you pass my picture on the wall. I started in 1985 as a Clerk 1 and ended my career as a litigation specialist in 2022. I retired at the age of 61 and have been paying the group rate for health insurance at approximately $950 per month as a benefit until I turned 65. For most of the time at TAD, I was a single mom with 2 boys to raise, and extra money was hard to come by to set back for retirement. I have a few preliminary issues to discuss. Number 1, if you are going to talk about a section of TAD's personnel manual, then make the sections you are going to discuss accessible to the public so that they can actually be an intelligent discussion surrounding the particular section of the employee manual by all. Number 2, if the board goes behind closed doors to discuss matters affecting over 200 employees of TAD, unless it is about an individual employee and only if it reflects a particular policy, this should not be done behind closed doors. While it is apparently legal to do so, it is not a good look for transparency. Now on to some other issues. Number 1, the employees of TAD have no real say of any discussion, and they will not know the decisions that were made for weeks to come. There should be a TAD liaison to the board for the employees. The employees need someone to protect their interests and benefits. Human Resources answers to the Chief Appraiser, and the Chief Appraiser answers to the board. The employees deserve an independent liaison. The TAD employees are not employees of a private entity, one that can give them bonuses and wage increases for meeting profit margins. They simply get thank you for getting the roll certified on time. And again, they are government employees. They do not pay into Social Security or receive Social Security upon retirement. They only receive retirement benefits promised to them as a result of their employment by TAD. The things that TAD employees have are their benefits provided by TAD. That is the reason I hung in as long as I did. I know that is the same mindset of many others still here. The job here can be a very thankless job. No one comes to TAD to say thank you for raising my value. These benefits serve as part of a morale boost for the employees. Benefits granted to employees should not be changed after the fact. I worked at TAD for 37 years and the promise of certain benefits. I would like to retain them. I know others that are still working here would like the same. You have a copy of it.
Mr. Daniel Bennett.
Daniel Bennett, White Settlement. To Ms. Bass's point, there was a salary study. It was brought forward to the board that the entry-level people were paying 18 to 20% less than where, of course, they justified the figures for the tenured employees who were head of departments to be anywhere from 18 to 24% over. So nothing I hear ever surprises me. I want to talk about Worman. He's on a ballot for this election. I guess he was nominated by Northwest ISD. I brought up the last meeting that he has fought in protest for taxpayers, and I also bore out the fact that he received money and passed it through, supposedly to Cook's Hospital. At least he says he did. It doesn't matter. He took money. Tax code's very clear. Within 3 years, you receive money. No matter if you throw it on the ground, give it to a homeless person, or give it to a board member, or give it to me. It precludes him from being on the ballot. In 2024, if the last time he did it was 2020, well, then he's eligible in 24. But I know he did it in 2023 too. There's nothing he's hiding. Also, I asked for his AOA forms. Big contentious issues with this board, right? Mr. Chandler Crouch, I think we had a litany of people lining up to malign him on AOAs. And big discussion with Mr. Law. I think he had a private meeting someplace where he was the head of the AOA club. Worman has no AOAs on file. Zero. Now, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to treat Mr. Worman like Mr. Krause was treated? Are we going to give it the same discernment and attention? Or are we just all going to sit back and say nothing? I think the latter is what's going to happen. All right, let's move on. I think I may stop there, only because I have so much other things to say, and if I go any further, I may alienate some people, and God forbid that should happen. I don't know where our chief appraiser is today. I hope he's okay. You did not comment to that. We'd like to know why he's not here, Mr. Pompey. You are the chair of the board. But I do want to say one thing. At the last board meeting, there were actual protests going on, and the lobby was packed. And we had to cause our security, Mr. Mark, to decide whether he was going to be in this boardroom or be out there protecting the public in the future. I know you're not running again, but if we have another meeting, which is in December, should there be protests that day? And Mark has to make that decision again. That's not a decision he should be making. He should not have to choose who to protect. I hope you'll do better next time. Thank you.
Mr. George Dodson.
Good morning, everyone. I want to speak about first item 3 under the consent agenda. It concerns the IBM Passport Advantage annual subscription. It's critical to track all software licenses that TAD is using. the public may not realize that if TAD employees or if software we'll be using that didn't have paid license, the vendor, of course, can come back with significant penalties, or in fact, they can file lawsuits if that's happening. So I agree with paying that renewal. On item 6, also under the consent agenda, it concerns the purchase of the IBM Storage Flash System 5200. The system provides significant decreases in the access time to data. This decrease can be roughly 100 times faster than the prior systems that use technology and rotating disk. The disk or the data is stored on flash or solid state technology, like the solid state disk you probably have in your PCs, which in turn results in significantly improved response times for the applications that are used at TAD. The system also increases the amount of data stored by automatically compressing the data, resulting in less physical space used. The system has the ability to rapidly make copies of the stored data. It can also be involved in the transmission of the backup data to backup sites for disaster recovery. I remember that TAD purchased some new tape drives some time ago for backing up data and sending those tapes to the city of North Richland Hills as a disaster recovery site. I'd like to understand if TAD's going to be using the Storage Flash System 5200 to do remote data backups, which can be done over the network rather than sending physical tapes, or is it the plan to just make faster compressed data backups for the backup tapes? All of that will be valuable, and I closely endorse this because my background is actually doing research for storage systems. Also, I hope you'll take up in the executive session the actions of the former director of information services at TAD, that you will release a statement that you're totally against his statements, and that no member employed by TAD should have the attitude of lying to the public about actions for the district. Next, I hope the current board does not choose the next chief appraiser. It's important. My time's up?
Thank you.
Okay. I have a couple more points if somebody.
Thank you. Is that it? Do we have any more? Oh, okay, yeah. We'll put it in for another one. Okay, Mr. Koch.
All right, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to get to address this board, and got a few comments here. One thing, I just hope I'm not jumping the gun. I see it. I didn't see an agenda packet to give me any details about the details of the policies under the consent agenda items. I've expressed my concern about the adjusting the retirement policies. I don't know what exactly the policy is that's going to be voted on. I don't know what the resolution says, so I hope I'm not jumping the gun on this. But I would say this. One, without the agenda packet, without further discussion, and without feedback from the employees here, I think that it might be short-sighted to pass something. So I would just like to hear, I would just like for your consideration to possibly remove that from consent so we could have a little bit more discussion. The second thing is, I think it would be good, if it hasn't been done already, which it may have been, to get some feedback from the employees here about this. Because there are a lot of good employees here. There are some that are not. But with all of the changes going on, you guys are going to be depending on the good employees to step up and really go to bat and keep the fabric of this thing held together and help rebuild and get on stable ground. And if you don't have the feedback on what's going to happen, how this is going to affect morale and the people behind the scenes here, you may be not only cutting the head off the snake, but the tail and the body too. You know, it could be a big problem. So I think getting the feedback would be good. In general, I just want to say I absolutely commend you guys for taking up issues and looking for ways to cut costs. It's something that I haven't heard a whole lot of. Certainly more from some people than others, but I think it's a commendable effort. I think that there are definitely ways to cut costs. I just think for somebody that's already retired or currently employed to move the goalposts, it just doesn't feel fair. And I think that the return on investment for the benefit you would get by removing that may not get you down the path that you want to go. There's other areas that I think would probably move that ball forward, like funded positions that don't actually have staff members that, you know, there's items on the budget for that is probably could offset whatever gain you would get by adjusting this. So I just thought I would mention that. And here's the other thing. You're doing something that's going to affect these employees. If they have a gripe, to expect them to stand behind this podium and give you any kind of feedback is absolutely short-sighted. It's a great risk of them to let their voice be heard if you're not allowing them to communicate with you in an anonymous way or something, in a way that's proactive. And so I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Just to clarify, it looks like it's part of the consent agenda, but 6B is not part of the consent agenda. It's its own separate item. That being said, yes, Mr. William Durham is not here. He's sick today, so he let us know that he will be available by phone if we need to, but we just hope that he's okay and that he'll recover quickly. Let's see, we're going into the consent agenda items. Before we take those up, are there any that would, that you guys want to remove from the consent agenda?
I would like further discussion on item 2.2.
Okay, so we will pull that from the consent agenda. Anything else? Okay, with that being said, then I will take a motion on approving the consent agenda items A1 through 6, with the exception of 2, which we will remove and discuss separately. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay, great.
I was expecting JR to make. I was waiting for him to make.
Okay, well, let's vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Is that my microphone?
Sounds like it.
Yeah, it sounded like it. Okay, so let's talk about A2. Who's, somebody want to present?
I can speak to what we put in the
Make sure
agenda.
yeah, make sure you put your...
The TAD periodically provides for cost of living adjustments for the retirement benefits for its retired employees. In the past few years, GASB Statement 68 rule changes have limited the frequency that COLAs could be granted without penalizing the plan with the repeating COLA designation. And to avoid that designation and penalty, a COLA cannot be granted any more often than every third year. So TAD has kind of adopted that policy over the last several years. The most recent COLA was granted in 2021. And so the next opportunity to grant a COLA without that repeating COLA designation is next year, 2024. And the recommendation was, in order to pre-fund a COLA for 2024, payment to the Texas County and District Retirement Systems, TCDRS, must be made by December 31st of this year. And in prior board meetings, we've had a committed fund called the Retirement Unfunded Liabilities Committed Fund, designated by this board, and $850,000 was placed in that fund. And so in your packet, you see the information for pre-funding a 2% COLA, and the cost is slightly less than that $850,000. And then so the staff recommendation was to 3 separate actions for the board to authorize a 2% COLA for TAD retirees for 2024, authorize a transfer of that $850,000 from the committed fund
to use in reducing the unfunded actuarial accrued liability, and then authorize the payment of that $850,000 after it's been moved to the general fund to TCDRS for use in reducing the unfunded actuarial, hard word to say, accrued liability of TAD's retirement plan. So basically, this is a 2% COLA for our retirees, and it's already been saved for, funded by this committed fund that we created a few years ago.
Okay, until December 31st, I have the ability to say, being the new guy on the board, and let's see if I'm even on the board after that. So help me understand, again, my world is the commercial world, not the public sector world. So do our employees not contribute to the Social Security plan?
No, sir.
Okay, so this is in lieu of that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And does Social Security go up every year, cost of living, or is it happen at different? I mean, again, you're not supposed to be an expert on Social Security.
Yes, I believe it does, and I know that last year, in 2023, it was 8 to 9%, I believe. I'm just going off of memory, because I wrote down in my notes that I know for this year, going forward, it's going to be 3.2% COLA for the Social Security users. So this is still less than what Social Security is giving, especially since we're only doing this every 3 years, so we're only giving 2% every 3 years.
Okay. This is a too deep of a question probably, but why is it, and I know teachers don't do it, I know there's different ones, but why is it our choice whether or not our employees are part of Social Security? Or is it state legislation says, no, you've got to do your own thing?
Good question for our attorney.
That is an option for appraisal districts. There are some appraisal districts in the state that do have their employees participate in Social Security, but there are other appraisal districts throughout the state, like Tarrant, where the employees do not participate in Social Security.
So therefore, Tarrant County does not contribute, well, we're not matching anything, we're not contributing, okay.
Right. There is nothing from the Tarrant Appraisal District budget that goes into Social
Yeah.
Security, and the employees don't put into Social Security either. Instead, there is this internal retirement system.
And again, this goes back 3 years, so do you know what the logic was to the 2% or anything of that nature?
Not the exact amount of 2%. I know that the every 3 years was to avoid that designation as being a repeat offender, for lack of a better word.
And so this is money that's already budgeted in our 2024 budget.
But it was placed into a committed fund, and so part of the recommendation is to move that money out of that fund to the general fund so that we can fund this COLA.
All right, so committed fund was, we knew that we were putting money in there in order to do this.
For this purpose.
Is there more money in that fund?
That it's the $850,000 is what's in there for right now.
Okay. And so come 2025, it just depends how much money we budget into that fund. Is that correct?
Or we could have excess funds at the end of the year that we could commit to that fund.
Normally, that's what we've been doing the last few years, is when there's excess funds, the staff, again, tries to project the budget as closely as possible,
Yeah.
but fortunately, we usually end up with extra money, not in a deficit, so that's a great job by the staff. But what we've done the last couple of years that I've been on the board, it's been reserve those funds into that, the extra money that we have left over into that fund, knowing that that's really our only mechanism at the time for funding those liabilities, unfunded liabilities in essence.
So, I'm a stickler for budgets, and I'm always looking for a way to cut costs, but this has been a very educational for me. I think as the new board, whoever that board is, this ought to be considered going forward to be more competitive with Social Security. But I'm also not, that's what we budget. I think that's what we've got to work with. So that's just a comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
If my memory serves me right, the decision to opt in or opt out of Social Security was a 1988 decision.
Yeah, I think that is correct, yes.
So it's, you really can't go backwards without contributing, so you can't get in.
You would have to pay catch-up, right? If you wanted to switch back, you can, but it's a pretty hefty liability.
Yeah, and obviously,
yeah.
1988 to 2023, that's a lot of Social Security contributions. So.
Yeah. And the other question, the 2% is cumulative for 3 years? Is
It's
that-
2% each year.
So if Social Security COLA, and we have a misnomer if we're calling it a COLA, because it is not truly a COLA, because the COLA is determined by the cost of living, and if it was 3, I think it's 3.5 this year, and it was 9 last year roughly. So we're looking at a cumulative increase over the last 3 years of probably around 12%, or maybe a little higher. So 2% is awful lean if we look at it. And if we increased it to 4%, would that double the 850,000?
I'll have to look to, we have a representative from TCDRS that's sitting in there.
Yes, please come up here.
She's with the TCDRS.
Tarrant
Retirement
County
System.
Retirement System.
I'm sorry. Texas County District Retirement System.
Good morning. My name is Erica Aguirre, and I'm with the Texas County and District Retirement System. And I was asked to attend just in case there might be some questions about the plan.
Well, thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'll make sure it doesn't fall. At TCDRS, we provide the opportunity for districts to pass COLAs for retirees. We offer flat rate COLAs from 1% as high as 6%. We offer CPI COLAs, Consumer Price Index, up to 100% of CPI, which would restore all the lost purchasing power lost. So we give the district the option of flat rate or CPI. At Tarrant County, there were a number of years that CPI COLAs were passed for many years. From 2000 to 2009, CPI COLAs were passed. And then in 2011, a flat rate was passed, followed by 2012, a CPI, a 90% CPI. And since then, the Government Accounting Standards Board, the GASB organization, came up with a repeating COLA designation. There's no cost to you. It doesn't harm the plan, but it's just a designation. And some of our districts not to receive the designation. And the way to avoid it is to pass a COLA every 3 years or greater. So that's what Tarrant Appraisal began to do in 2014. They would spread their COLAs every 3 years or greater. And the last 3 that were passed have been flat rate, a 1%, a 1%, and a 2%. Now those discussions, the way they originate is I'm often called and the question is asked, what is the cost of a particular COLA? And that's where we begin the discussion. What is the cost? And based on whatever funds were designated the year before, we find a COLA that will fit that cost for Tarrant Appraisal. And last year, when they designated the 850, and I ran numbers of flat rate or CPI, the COLA that fit that budget closest was a 2% flat rate COLA, coming in at exactly $807. And that would just pre-fund it, so there's no impact to your rate. There's no, it's a wash, so you're funding it in advance. But if this board should ever be curious on the cost of a 3, 4, 5, or 6% flat rate, it is my responsibility to provide that to you. And if you're ever curious on the cost of a CPI COLA, anywhere from a 10% as high as 100%, I'd be happy to provide you with those costs as well. And finally, it is not a requirement to pre-fund a COLA. You don't have to. You can simply amortize it into your rate, and it takes 15 years to pay off a COLA with TCDRS. We charge you a 15th at a time over an amortization cycle, and you can certainly do that as well. So you don't have to pre-fund it. It's just been the culture and the habit of the to want to pre-fund it. It doesn't increase your rate costs each year, and that's just a proactive strategy. But there are options, and it is certainly my opportunity to provide you with further data if you'd like. Plan decisions are due December 15th, so I can provide you with anything you need prior to your next meeting if you'd like, but I'm happy to be helpful.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
So I take it, this $850,000, we send it to them and they disperse it? I'm confused on the relationship.
So the cost of the COLA would come to us for in your Tarrant Appraisal Trust. Every county and district has their own trust with us, and that's what funds your plan. And so the cost simply comes to us as a payment, and our actuaries allocate that toward the cost of living for the retirees. And so it is sent to us. It's sent to us in a calendar year, and it goes into the Tarrant Appraisal Trust. And then based on what you've elected to pass a COLA, the coming January, we then offer that COLA to all of your Tarrant Appraisal retirees. And the cost that we've looked at is a 2% that's on the table. And so beginning January of 2024, every retiree will receive a 2% bump on their current income, their monthly income.
Where is the check coming from?
Oh, from Tarrant Appraisal. It goes directly to TCDRS. It's funding your plan, and we administer your plan.
Okay.
So their retirement checks come from you?
The check to retiree comes from our office.
Oh, that's what I'm
Oh,
asking.
I'm
That's what
sorry.
you
I
were
thought
asking.
you meant the
Yeah.
cost of the COLA check.
Yeah.
No,
No, I know where that cost comes from.
the retirees, they receive it from us,
They
sir,
receive
on
a
the
check
last
from the
business day
retirement
via
system.
direct deposit. And I'd like to clarify, we don't mail checks. We pay everybody via direct deposit, and we pay them on the last business day. And a retiree receives a pension, so they get it for life. And it's just immediately into a checking or savings that they provide us.
Monthly.
Monthly, yes, sir, on the last business day of each month.
And I guess the funds in our trust don't gain any value by being in the trust?
They do, and so the way the trust earns money is however we do in the stock market as a system, TCDRS. We monitor a $42 billion portfolio, and based on our assets at the end of each year, if we have exceeded our benchmark of 7.5%, that's our long-term investment return goal. If we've exceeded that, then we pass off gains to all of our counties and districts. If we don't exceed that, we don't have gains to pass off that year. But that is how the trust earns any kind of money, is when we do well and exceed our 7.5 investment return, then those are passed off to our counties and districts. Currently, we have about 860 employers. We have every county in the state of Texas except for Motley, and we have districts that are governmental entities like yourselves.
So TCDRS, who are y'all under the authority of?
So we are governed by the state legislature, but we do not receive any funds from the state of Texas. We are self-funded. We were established in 1968, and we are governed by a 9-member board of trustees that is appointed by the governor and approved by the state senate, and we manage our own funds. And so what funds our plan, sir, are 3 areas. The first area, the largest contributor, is how we do with our investment return. If I were to give you an example of a benefit dollar paid out, of every benefit dollar, 74 cents comes from our investment return. So our portfolio is very important because we don't receive state funds. It funds our system. 15 cents of every benefit dollar that's paid comes from the employer. So you're funding a match, and the match here is 250%. You're funding that. Tarrant Appraisal funds the match to the actual plan. And 11 cents comes from the employee's own pockets. They save for their own retirement. When a member is hired here, from that very first month, they begin saving for their own retirement over the course of their entire career. And while they're saving for themselves, the appraisal district is funding a match. And the match was set at $250 as of last year. And one of the reasons why it went to the highest by state statute, which is $250, is because you don't offer Social Security. They wanted to make that match more competitive and offer more of that higher return for the member because they don't receive Social Security. Prior to the $250, you were at a $225 match for many years, but last year it was brought to $250. And then prior to $225, it was $150 for many years. So over the course of Tarrant Appraisals being with TCDRS, the match has increased over time for your employees.
We're matching what the employee contributes.
Yes, sir.
At 250%. They put in $100, we put in $250.
You put in $2.50 for every one of their
For every one of
dollars.
them, okay.
Yes, sir. And the only way they can ever get that match, sir, is they must meet one of three rules to become eligible. And when they become eligible to retire, they can apply for a lifetime benefit that they receive with us, but they must hit eligibility rules. And so I always like to stress that that match stays with the district until the member becomes eligible and chooses to retire. It's not the member's money until they become eligible and retire. Over their career, those matching dollars are in the appraisal district's fund. It's the district's money until the member reaches eligibility and chooses to retire.
Can the employee choose not to contribute?
No, sir, it's a condition of employment.
Oh, okay.
If they are a permanent employee, they must participate. Now, if they're temporary, if they're hired for a season, an election season, for a summer, and there's an end date, They are not required by state statute to participate, but permanent employees must by condition of employment.
Okay, I think we're going to move on unless we have any questions regarding specifically to the 2% COLA that we're approving today and the items that are being requested.
Could I ask one more question?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Let Rich
Yes.
ask a question because he's waiting.
So the 2% today is something that we do every year?
Every 3 years.
So we just do 2% adjustment every 3
Well,
years?
one adjustment every 3 years, whatever we choose to do.
Okay. All right.
But right now, based on the money that we have in that fund, that's why they propose 2%, because that money's already pre-funded.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
We are going to have some unspent funds at the end of the year. How much, we do not know. So we would have the option of tabling this today, bringing it back. The only caveat is that we have to make a decision, there has to be a form sent to TCRS by December 15th.
Yes, sir.
Correct? Our next meeting is scheduled to be December 14th, so we would have time, and it's not funded until the end of the year. But if we wanted to table until that time, we could get some more information if we wanted to do more than the 2% and present that at a future meeting.
Thank you.
Two questions. The $850,000 includes any increase we've earned in the trusts?
The 850 is extra funds that you had from last year.
I'm sorry, say it again.
The 850,000 was just extra funds that you had last year that was allocated to the plan for this year, to my
Okay,
understanding.
I'm sorry. You said that we gain interest or we gain value in the trust. Is there any additional value in the trust?
Yes, and so whatever we close with the market at the end of each year, if we have exceeded our 7.5 investment return, whatever it goes over, we do two
Okay,
things.
so my question, did any of that go back in to our fund?
Not last year. Last year, we closed the year at negative 5.8,
Okay.
so we didn't pass anything last year.
Let me help you.
Yes, sir.
What is the funding status of the trust? Is it fully funded?
Oh, that's a great question. So your fund at current value, your assets, 104 million, the liabilities, 106 million. There's a difference of 2.2 million. So there is an unfunded amount of 2.2 million, but it's not all due. It's funded over time.
Understand.
And
That's a Gatsby.
you're at a
What's the year rating? How many years is it funded for?
So we run your numbers at a closed 20-year amortization cycle, but we do that each year. And right now, Terran Appraisal stands at a 98.6% funded ratio. So it's
pretty
very
dadgum
high.
good.
Outside rating agencies say you're healthy if you're 80%, and Terran Appraisal is 98.6%, very healthy, funded. Mhm.
Compared to some of the other retirement funds that are severely underfunded with huge liabilities.
So, Mr. Chairman, is it possible for us, considering, go ahead and make a vote on what's on the agenda, but then at the next meeting, if we have excess funds, then increase it, rather than putting this off, if we so choose to do?
Would that be possible if we,
Absolutely, we can run
So we can
some-
approve 2 today and then bring it back up next time and say, hey, we found a little extra money, we could do 3,
We would just adjust it and not go with the 2, we'd go with the 3. It can be changed, absolutely.
just before December.
Before December 15th, if
Yep.
you just let me know what your final decision is, we will go with your final decision.
So if you're ready for motion?
We're ready for a motion.
I move that we accept, as stated, the 2% COLA. I think I'll
Go ahead
stop
and
there.
do the recommendations. If you're going to make a motion,
Yes.
I'd say make a motion for all 3 recommendations as recommended by the staff. That way we cover them all in one motion.
Okay, so that's what I move.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am, for
Thank you for your time.
your presentation. Thank you.
Do you need to take a vote on that since we have a motion?
Correct. I was going to ask you, is there any further discussion?
Do we get a second? I'm sorry.
Yes. JR seconded. Okay, well, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Motion include asking that they come back to us at our next meeting with a recommendation for a higher rate, or is it just the flat 2%?
I was only motion of 2%, knowing that we could do it. So I wasn't making that a condition of motion.
That could be a separate motion if we
Yeah.
would like. Or just a request at the end when we ask for items to be put on the agenda?
I would just ask that,
So let's stick
Okay,
with
let's go ahead and finish the vote. Everybody said
Yeah.
aye. Any opposing? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Did you have a
I
quick?
just asking the chief appraiser to come back with more information next time.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Thank you all for that. We're going to move on now to action item 6B, discussion and possible action on amending tax personnel policies. This is an item that we dealt with in the past, a couple of meetings ago. And before we discuss it, I've asked Mr. Durham to bring us more information. So at this time, I will accept the motion to table this item until our next meeting.
So moved.
Second, okay. Any other further discussion on it? Please vote. Please say aye if you are in favor. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so we're going to move on. Information items. Our taxpayer liaison officer is not here today, so we don't have a report from her. Okay, so you got a report in your book. If anybody has any questions, it's under the liaison report. Just some numbers here. Does anybody have any question on that? Okay. That's just information, so we're going to move. Our chief appraiser is not here. Did he leave you a report to, or did he send you something to report on?
I don't have any notes, but I can just comment briefly about the items that he placed on here. One was the status of the fourth quarter activities. I know that the appraisal departments are in the midst of field work, working permits, just basically preparing for 2024. We do still have some ARB hearings, some motions that we're going to hear next week, and then some more in December. And a lot of the classes and training that the appraisers are required to attend have been happening over the last few weeks, with the last class being next week. And then the second item he was going to comment on, and I'm sorry I don't have his notes, but he was going to comment on the update on the Comptroller's 2023 property value study and the upcoming maps review. I just know that speaking with the other directors, department directors and the staff meeting, that everything seems to be going well. We've provided the information to the Comptroller's appraisers for both the commercial department, residential, and personal property, and everything seems to be going well there. And then as far as the maps review, we got information that we were already gathering information for the initial deadline of December 1st. We have to provide them with some information. And then they are going to be on site in late April. We just found that out yesterday. So we're going to have a reviewer come on site. And basically they're just reviewing our procedures to make sure we're operating like we're supposed to. And I'm glad to report that in the past several maps reviews, we've got 100%, something we're very proud of. But that's all I have.
Any questions on that? Okay, well, thank you for stepping in and giving us a quick report. I appreciate it. And now we're going to recess to executive closed session pursuant to the following parts of the Texas Open Meetings Act, Government Code, Chapter 551, for the following purposes. Before I read all this, Vince, are you sure okay we're going to closed session? I don't want to read it twice. Section 551.074, deliberation on the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee related to the search for a permanent chief appraiser. And Section 551.071, deliberation on a matter in which the Board of Directors seeks the advice of its attorney about contemplated litigation in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with the Open Meetings Act related to statements made by Tarrant Appraisal District's former Director of Information Services regarding the Tarrant Appraisal District's information systems. Okay, with that, we're... Thank you, thank you. All right, let's go. Thank you all for that are here still. We did receive information and reports on both of the items that we went into closed session for. First, on the chief appraiser, we are moving along, but there's really nothing to report or any action to be taken at this time for that part. On the investigation, the entire board and the current staff, and I know Mr. Durham made the comment when he first was appointed that we will continue to be transparent, and certainly comments that were made in the past about us misleading the taxpayers are not in line with what we are willing to do or what we expect from the staff. So we'll just reiterate that. I know we've said that before, and we'll say it again, and maybe in honesty, are absolutely paramount to every public board, and we definitely will continue to do that. As far as the investigation into the IT, we're going to terminate that investigation. The firm that we hired, Apollo, found no signs that any data had been taken from our system. And so at this point, we're not sure why it didn't make any sense to us, but they did identify some issues that we need to address, and we've requested that they give us a proposal on how to address those issues, and I believe that proposal is forthcoming next Wednesday, so we are calling another meeting for next Friday at 8 a.m. to address any proposal that between Apollo and our staff, our IT staff, will bring to present to us, then we won't have the meeting. It will only be specifically for that. The only thing that we could add to that agenda maybe if we have any updates on the chief appraiser job search. If we have something to do with that, then we'll open it to that. So that being said, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, all in favor? Let's do it.